It's already been a couple of weeks since we've had our first suit pictures for the upcoming Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger. And now, thanks to this past weekend's Bandai blog updates, we have a lot to talk about here today with the Mecha and everything, so let's go ahead and talk about some updates for the upcoming 47th Super Sentai series. So King-Ohger is going to be premiering on TV Asahi on March 4th, 2023, following the conclusion of Avataro Sentai Dawn Brothers, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing here so far with these suits, and the mecha, I'm not the hugest fan of, but I can't deny how impressive the mecha is just with its engineering, and the design is still pretty cool, I'll definitely give it that. So following us just getting that initial poster like right before Christmas, we actually ended up getting a lot more better pictures over the next couple of days after that, so these pictures are like weeks old at this point, and we're not really going to dive into them too much, but now that we have some actual really nice suit photos from Toei themselves, we can kind of get a lot better of a look at these suits, and I am quite a fan of these. I know a lot of people have kind of complained a little bit about them being just a little too much of their primary color, being like they kind of look a little unfinished, or they could use a little bit more detail or a little bit more color to break up just the singular like all red or all blue or whatever it may be. But yeah, this is cool. I really do like these suits quite a bit. I think the helmets are really nice. I would maybe do with like a visor trim around them or something. They feel a little... It's like the only part that I kind of feel is sort of that unfinished look, because everything else does kind of have that secondary darker color of their primary color. Like, as you can see on Yellow, you kind of have a little bit of almost orange kind of accents on her suit that I think kind of help break that up to where it doesn't feel as incomplete or so on that, but the helmets without some kind of visor trim make them feel a little kind of barren to me, if that makes any kind of sense. But I still do really like them quite a bit. I love that we have purple on the primary team. That is still so cool. I know it's still kind of up in the air what gender purple is. I know some people think that purple might be non-binary, which would actually be really cool, but we're not 100% sure exactly what is going on with that, because it's been a little confusing with kind of the descriptions of what they've said these characters are, other than the fact that all of them are like kings or queens of their like respective continents or nations, which is sort of going to kind of be the main story of this show, is that there's going to be like a bunch of different countries that kind of have their leader, and the 5 of them come together to be a Sentai team, which I think is definitely a really neat concept, and definitely going to be, I would have to imagine, setting this in its own kind of universe, sort of like how Q Ranger's in its own universe, or we don't even really know if Dawn Brothers is in its own universe, or if that's in the same supposed to be universe as Zenkaiger, or whatever it may be. It's always been kind of confusing, or not really confusing, they just never really addressed it whatsoever, but I really like the idea of that, and I think it's cool. We've seen that there's going to be some kind of made-up language for this series because they were filming the show they obviously have been filming the show for probably like a couple of months or so, or a month or two, but they had a whole shoot a couple of weeks ago where they had some extras come out, and people of course took some photos, and some people shared a little bit of information from that, even though they were asked to not share information from the shoot if they were part of the extras for the shoot, but of course, people were going to do that anyway. So we do already know from the toy listings and the toy leaks that we're going to have a Silver who's not necessarily going to be like the 6th Ranger of the team, because that would still be like quarter 2 stuff, but there is going to be a 6th Ranger that shows up very early on. They just haven't revealed his suit yet, or his mecha, or any of that kind of stuff just yet, but hopefully we're going to see that soon. But kind of the big news that we had over this past weekend was we finally got our first set of toy pictures. So it's kind of been very surprising how like hidden the toy pictures have been, or how private they've been with it. We do not have a press conference announcement just yet for King-Ohger, which whenever that does happen, I would love to do a reaction live stream on the channel here with a bunch of my friends, like we did in the past for Dawn Brothers or Comrade Geats or whatever it may be. So that would definitely be fun whenever they reveal the cast and other supporting characters and stuff like that. We'll probably get a lot more toy pictures then. Like, we know we're getting Sentai Hero Series vinyls for these guys, we know we're getting action figures for these guys, and of course their sword changers and stuff like that are going to be sold. The mecha for King-Ohger is King-Ohger. So in a pretty interesting move, the mecha is actually just the same name as the show, or the same name as the team. So definitely going to be very easy to remember what the mecha is called for this one. So King-Ohger here, or Deluxe King-Ohger, is going to be a toy releasing at the beginning of March. It's going to come out the same weekend as the show starts, just as these toys usually do. However, there is going to be a special premium Bandai period of time to where you can like order it there or something, and you will get it in like, I think like mid to early February. So I don't exactly know how that works out. It's not going to be a different toy or anything like that. It's just going to be a premium Bandai like early batch of them or something like that. So I'm sure we're probably going to start seeing like Japanese toy reviews of this in about a month or so. We already have the Bandai Mania demo video that got posted the other night, which obviously is always really fun, and it kind of gives you a better look at each of these individually, besides just, of course, the toy pictures. So King-Ohger is going to be a mecha consisting of 10 insect mechas. So even though there are 5 rangers, there are 5, like, still primary mecha. They're not exactly auxiliary mecha, because we have one of those at the other batch of those toys. I don't really know exactly what you would call them, because they are components and main crucial components for the initial combination, but I don't think they're necessarily, well, they're definitely not, like, completely tied to a ranger. It's not like we have, you know, an ant ranger to go with this little ant thing, or we have a spider to go with the spider or something like that, but I like these. I think these are kind of cool. They basically kind of are just thrown on there to kind of clean up and make it look a little more bulky, or kind of complete the armor in certain aspects of it, because just the mecha on their own without these extra 5 would probably make it look a little weird, so it's fine. I definitely do like that. So looking at these 10 mecha here, we have God Kuwagata, God Tombo, God Kamakiri, God Papillon, God Hachi, God Tendos, God Kumos, and God Ant. So obviously the last 5 there, we have a little bit of duplicates. We have 2 spiders, we have 2 ladybugs, which is kind of strange. I don't really know why they doubled up on some of them and then we just have like a one little ant, but you know, it's what it is with that. I'm a fan of this. I am a fan of the design of King-Ohger, but it's not my favorite mecha. I get it's Dan Onitajin last year and Toradora Gojin and all that kind of stuff were very, very popular mecha. They sold out pretty quickly. They sold very, very well. So Bandai is definitely more inclined or definitely interested in making these big, expensive, articulated mecha. And for that, the engineering of this thing is really cool. But well, first of all, I don't really have the space for that kind of thing. I also don't really have the money for that kind of thing, so I am not getting King-Ohger, at least at first. I'm definitely not pre-ordering it or anything like that, but then again, as we know, peer pressure a lot of times with my friends from Toku Twitter ends up to, you know, having things like this happen, to where, you know, I say I won't buy it, and then I end up getting it anyway, because, spoiler alert, I have bought Toradora Gojin. That's going to be a video soon, but I just don't really have the space for one of these kind of things again. I don't even have the space for this. But after the successes of things like that, I'm not surprised at all that they're doing something like this for King-Ohger. When it comes to the breakdown of all this, basically Dragonfly, or kind of the body of it, becomes the main sword. You put Ant on the sword there to kind of complete the look. Papillon just kind of gets thrown on there, which I think looks pretty good as kind of the guard for the sword. It's kind of like that's kind of its purpose there. You get some Dragonfly wings back there. Kamakiri and Hachi become the legs, which I will say look a little strange because you plug them in like at the knee joints, so they're not the full leg. Because I mean, obviously you can see there's a lot of similar Dawn Brothers kind of color. Well, obviously the color scheme is very similar, but you kind of have similar things with like the wings up there coming from not from pink this time, from blue, but you have yellow and black as the same colors on the same legs. So you have that. Of course, red is always going to be the torso main piece. That's just kind of how this would always work. But there's certain parts of this spider kind of becomes a crotch piece. There are a ton of unused pegs on these things. You can look at the spider as a perfect example. There's a bunch of clips there that don't have any purpose yet. Obviously, they will have a purpose with all of the other mecha that they're going to inevitably be selling us for the show. If you remember the initial toy listings I talked about back in December, which I did a whole video on, if you guys want a whole recap of what is coming in the first quarter, we have a ton of mecha on the way here besides just what we see here today. So they're definitely going to be selling us a lot of stuff. We're definitely going to have a lot of combinations to go over. And that's really, really cool. We're going to have a whole batch of insects at the end of this thing. So, and speaking of insects, we do have our first auxiliary Zord, which is going to be God Kabuto. So to go with the Kuwagata beetle, we are going to get a Kabuto beetle, which, yes, in my initial recap or my initial reaction to seeing the King-Ohger suits for the first time in my last King-Ohger video, I kept calling Red a Kabuto beetle. I know he's not a Kabuto beetle. He's a Kuwagata beetle. But that was at like 9 o'clock in the morning. I had like just woken up and saw the suits for the first time. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but yeah, no, that he's definitely a Kuwagata. This is the Kabuto. So we are going to get God Kabuto as sort of the first big auxiliary mecha that isn't one of the tiny little insects that make up the little gaps on King-Ohger. And he looks pretty cool. I definitely get some Beatbuster vibes of kind of his mecha from Go Busters, or I guess what we call a Mantis over here in Power Rangers Beast Morphers for some reason, even though that's definitely not what this thing is. It's a Kabuto beetle. So I do like the black and gold. I like the green accents on that too. I think that's also really cool. So it looks like kind of his main combination is he kind of just plugs in as sort of not an entirely new arm, but kind of like a giant, like almost like a battering ram or something onto the right arm of King-Ohger. So the deluxe King-Ohger is going to be sold for 9,350 yen for a March 4th release, and there's going to be two different ways you can buy this. You can obviously just buy King-Ohger on its own. You get the main 10 mecha there, everything you're going to need. Or there's also going to be a special combo set with God Kabuto, also released on March 4th for 13,200 yen. And then if you want to buy God Kabuto on its own, which is officially kind of given like number 11 in the mecha distinction, God Kabuto is going to be released by himself on March 25th of 2023 for 3,850 yen. So now these are going to be sold, of course, on Amazon Japan, HLJ, all those kind of places. Amazon Japan does have a listing up for these already, but they're not active yet until pre-orders go live this Saturday, which actually, this Saturday, King-Ohger is going to be making a cameo appearance in episode 45 of Avatara Sentai Dawn Brothers. So this is going to be very similar to how last year we had Don Zenkaio appear in an episode of Zenkaiger. We're now going to have King-Ohger appear in an episode of Dawn Brothers, which, with all the pictures we've seen of this week's episode, it looks like it's going to be a really crazy packed episode, so I don't even know exactly how that's going to play in there or how relevant it's going to be to the episode. But right after Dawn Brothers is over this weekend is when King-Ohger is going to go up for sale or for pre-order on these websites. There is not a listing up there yet for HLJ, but whenever there is one, I will be including that in the description below here. I will change the description and update it to include that as well. Now also, if you pre-order this from Amazon Japan, there will be a listing for you to guarantee to get the promotional bonus, because, you know, whenever a new show starts for Tokusatsu, a lot of times there's a promotional bonus, and this time around it is going to be a Don Onitajin head for this thing. So there's not necessarily a gimmick in King-Ohger besides like just a ton of mecha, so the heads are not necessarily going to be a gimmick per se, but we're still not exactly sure how all of that works. But there's going to somehow be some sort of swappable head to give this guy Don Onitajin's face. I don't exactly know why. I don't know if that's going to be something we see in Dawn Brothers when it makes its cameo appearance this week. It certainly could be, or what the deal is with that. They haven't officially shown it yet, other than just like the silhouette that I'm sure you've probably already seen on screen, or if not, you're definitely seeing right now. But we don't exactly know what that's going to look like, other than basically just giving King-Ohger Don Onitajin's face. So if you want that, pre-order it early as possible, because HLJ will probably get some of them, but you're not going to be guaranteed. Amazon Japan will have that guaranteed listing for it. So like I said, the listings from Amazon Japan and HLJ will be in the description below for you to order your King-Ohger. And that's going to be our first batch of King-Ohger stuff. I hope that maybe this weekend they will actually officially reveal pictures of the action figures and of the vinyls, but probably not. They're probably going to wait until the actual press conference happens, but maybe they could actually announce what day that's going to be, since we still don't know. And then I think the final thing to talk about for King-Ohger today is that there was a pretty interesting kind of in-depth development interview done by Dengeki Hobby with Bandai, who my buddy Matt Hunt of Dukemon on Ranger Board was very nice to translate the whole thing, so it kind of just goes into the design process behind King-Ohger with Bandai, and also with Plex, of course, as well, and kind of just where they were thinking, kind of where they were going with this sort of thing. So that will also be linked in the description below if you kind of want to learn more about King-Ohger, and as well in the description below will be the Bandai Mania demo video if you guys just kind of want to see them play around with the mecha and show it off. So I think that's going to do it. There's a lot of stuff happening for King-Ohger. It's that kind of time of the year where we're about to start a new show for Sentai or even for Rider or whatever it may be, and we have a bunch of toy pictures and information and exciting things. So I like what I'm seeing here. I don't necessarily like it as much as Dawn Brothers' stuff, but then again, I keep trying to tell myself that because I just budgetly cannot afford to do this year with big life changes that are about to happen, and also trying to deal with Power Rangers 30th anniversary and everything like that. So there will not be King-Ohger reviews on Toku Topics for the toys, except for the Yuta figures, or maybe even the main action figures. I will get action figures of them because I definitely want figures of the suits, but I'm not collecting the mecha. I'm not getting that sword yet or anything like that, so unfortunately don't expect videos of those here, but there's going to be tons of other YouTubers out there that will cover that kind of stuff. I'll just keep talking about the news for it and kind of share my thoughts on the show or whatever it may be. There will still be King-Ohger content here on the channel at some point. So let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of the deluxe King-Ohger toy from King-Ohger? What do you think of the King-Ohger suits themselves? How do you think this is going to play into Dawn Brothers, even though by the time you see this video, that will only be a couple of days from now, so we'll know very soon. But what do you think of any of this stuff down there, and are you excited to see the brand new 47th Super Sentai series? And until next time, you guys can follow me on Twitter at LivingRangerKey or LightningFigPR. Huge thanks to Matt Hunt, as always, for translating everything and posting everything, and also huge thanks to Sentai5 on Twitter for having a nice thread of the pictures that made it really easy for me to grab them and stuff for the purposes of this video. So I'll see you all next time, and that's gonna do it. To wrap up this video, I'd like to thank my $5 and above patrons: Jurassic Samurai, Maggot Alchemist, Robert Browning, Static Thunder, Brendan Overland, Magi Yellow, Redstone MCPC, Comix1017, James Doherty, Monster Rocket, John Luke, Eric Berry, and Tyler Bozetsky. You can support Toku Topics for as little as $1 a month on my Patreon, link in the description below.